Welcome to Pass It On. This podcast is organized by the International Humanity Foundation, IHF, where we dive into inspiring stories of individuals dedicated to passing on kindness and hope. I'm your host, Darius, and in each episode, we'll explore the journeys of volunteers from all around the globe who have joined IHF.
Okay, thank you very much, Darius. I'm talking about the African region. You have a center at Kenya. I would like to know what motivated you for that dish to make that decision and why Kenya specifically.
That was what we ended on. Yes. And I can't remember what I said and haven't said yet, but I think I mentioned that Kenya is I remember. It was the safari with Crystal, with my daughter. Um, Crystal, we were in Thailand and dealing with, at that time, it was, my goodness, 90% of all tourists were male, and for the purpose of young female, who are just children, girls, one 10 years old. And it was the hunt for Asa, who was the first uh, sexual slave, which she prefers is the term that's used, and I honor that and agree with it. She was the first sex slave that we encountered and did the rescue with. And that was in the early 80s. And my daughter, when she was only, 6 years old, my son told her one day how he used to go on the lecture circuit with me all over the US and everywhere. And she came to me crying, how come I never told her that? How come I never told her I had a TV show? How come I never told her all this? And how come she didn't get to do it? And I thought, you know what? She's right. How come? Why do I feel like at that point I was running international schools in the US, supervising over those departments, and not doing the White House anymore. And other than some consulting I did. And I thought, why? I don't want to hit the lecture circuit and be gone from them overnight constantly, and especially with her so young. But I could take her with me. And I went and talked with her teacher, and off we went. And the story of how we found Asa, and the center, the children we had rescued, and all that is a different story. But after the intensity of that, and we had rested in Indonesia and Bali and gone back to the intensity, I said, what would you like to do most, honey? What would you love to do? And she said, I'd love to see animals. And so we just figured, where would we like to go for the animals? And I had been to various areas in Africa earlier in my doctoral studies, but I now with my daughter, I wanted her to pick. So she looked through different things and decided she wanted to do this particular safari in Kenya. And it happened, it was very just, well, things happen that way, you know how it is, that a stewardess, a flight attendant that we had befriended and was wanting to sponsor some of our kids, um, she was on the same flight as when we were flying to Nairobi for this safari. And she said, oh my gosh, that's my uncle. He owns that. Let me arrange it for you, and blah, blah. So we ended up with a very special time for her, where they greeted us at the airport and took us to this amazing suite at the Hilton. And it was just a gift of her uncle. And it was an amazing safari. But what my daughter was struck by and really bothered her, and you know how kids that young age just speak up whatever's on her mind. She said, Mom, it feels like the racism here is worse than even in the US. What's going on? How come all the people on safari are white and all the servants are black? I mean, what? This is creepy, Mom. And it was really bothering her. And then we noticed all this whitening cream everywhere. And she said, Mike, this is even worse than in Asia. And of course, my daughter really objected because she was quite dark skinned compared to me and born that way. And she was, and would lie in the sun to make sure she was darker. I loved it. And, and she said, "What? Why would it be worse here than anywhere? I don't understand. I don't understand. Mama, we got to do something about this. This is rough." And a waitress had heard her talking to me. And the waitress's name was my name, Carol. And she came up and said, "Oh my God, do you have a phenomenal daughter?" And I'm sorry, but I've been listening to her conversation. And so after work, we met with her and she talked with my daughter. And we talked about the problem. AIDS was a big problem, and especially amongst the children that were trafficked. So we talked to her a bit about what I was working on and what had taken place in finding Asa, and she talked about the AIDS there problem. And she said, I've had this idea that if in the slum I live in here in Nairobi, if we could like rent movies and then show the movies and then sneak in bits about the AIDS and nutrition and the problems you're talking about with the breastfeeding and the sources that are available to help, we could sneak that in between the free movies, and we might even be able to do some things where we charge a little. And I know you don't have money. I explained I was, struggling here, and I didn't want them just coming after money. And she came up with all these ideas, and Crystal got all excited. She had a daughter Crystal's age. So Crystal said, "Mama, how about the money that we were going to spend for the rest of our vacation here? Why don't we? I know we don't have money that's supposed to go to Thailand and Cambodia and Laos, but why don't we use that money for here for doing that project?" And so that's what we did. We lived there, and that was fascinating because of people being really angry about our being there. And it was really good for I think for my daughter to experience, because she never had fears as my work took me into slums all over the world. Locals would have fears, but we didn't, and we were never harmed. And but it was a lesson in where to go, where not to, what to say, what not to say, and how to behave. And by the time we left there, we had a commitment, but a small commitment. And we told them the commitment, and I videoed to make sure that no one misunderstood, that the commitment was dependent on others at my university. I knew my friend Anthony would get very involved. He was half Kenyan at the university, and on their being able to get people to sponsor, because that would have to be how we went about it. And we had a few people, especially a doctor from Kenya that was living in the US and was involved with one of the international schools. And then we had another ambassador. And so I thought I can get them involved. And so when I returned home, that was the start. The problem was that in Nairobi, I met another gentleman who was a friend of Carol's, who owned Planet Safari. Horrible gentleman. I'll use his name everywhere because he ran for mayor, and I want everyone to know his name, even though I say no politics. It's important. Because he's conned so many people. Oh, good-hearted people. And so he owned Planet Safari, and he said, "Oh gosh, you should have gone on safari with me, and we'll do this little one here. And I've always wanted to help the orphans in my village, and if you'd be willing to help them, then the children that are in the slum area, we can help." And this was on like our third visit there. And I had to, for my other work, I had to kind of do the globe once my daughter and I started and found ASA. And that led us to India and other places to find folks. It ended up becoming kind of a lifestyle with the family in between our life here. And so I went, talked with him, and he showed this land, and he said he wanted to donate also, and introduced me to the head of the NGOs. And so we did all that, and I said, yes, IHF will have a chapter here. And it ended up being one big con with even the head of the NGO. So after I had cashed in a lot of my retirement to be able to do this place for the children, and all the cons, of course, begin with just this little bit and then bigger and then bigger. And the people that are conning always have another person come in and rescue you, who's your friend, who's rescuing you from these bad people, but they're actually part of the con. There is a particular pattern of cons I had experienced earlier in several countries, but I wasn't responsible. It was my consulting and helping organizations. And I had seen these nonprofits come and go and what would happen to them. So I was aware of it, but it just is so hard and so layered. And they're always your friends and your dearest friends, and then blah, blah, blah. And that had happened in Kenya. In the end, the police, two judges, and this gentleman and others ended up stealing about 70,000 in supplies, and twice that meant just a huge amount of money. And it was by the NGO, head of the NGOs for Kenya, putting it under his name and Jaga's name while having me sign a fake document. He was eventually relieved from Kenya. But at that point, I decided I do not want to do Kenya anymore. I'll go ahead with the smaller projects that I'm helping, but not responsible for throughout Africa, but I don't want to do an IHF in Kenya particularly. And feeling like the corruption from people just layered over the years, and with the UN there, which is, thank God, such a help, but all the corruption that feeds out of that. So I also was running into the sexual slavery and the children, especially from the tribes that they put on the safari to do little dances, which are sickening, and yet support them. I just felt kind of sick to my stomach about it all. Where's the humanness in all this? And just wanted to be gone. And so with the loss of quite a bit of money. And I was taken out to Pokot by another con artist who had really abused those in Pokot, as I found out years later. And this is during the transition time when the chiefs went from being voted by the community to being appointed and affiliated with the UN, which was very important to clean up things that were going on, and especially for female rights and many things. The problem with that is that you were bringing in even more con artists who didn't put the community first. And so they were using, in just horrible ways, the children out in Pokot. And several children starved while I was out there, and we were doing a famine feed, which I had done famine feeds for years, but it was obvious to me that those that they were bringing had swollen bellies because of parasites and poor water, not because of, which is often done on purpose, not because of malnutrition, and that a lot of the elderly and some of the children in the back were severely malnutritioned and their skin breaking everywhere. And I was just very, very concerned. So at the point I said, enough of Kenya. I don't want this corruption. It's lost money. It's just too much. I had to do something. And I wrote to friends trying to figure out in the UN, trying to figure out why they were not qualifying on their feed program. And the reasons were complex. It had to do with the mouth into Sudan and the war there. But it made sense. It was they weren't doing anything bad. It made sense. But in the meantime, there was a mammoth problem here. And I talked to a Catholic father there who was leaving and saying there's just too much corruption and too much danger, and I'm worn out. I'm leaving, but I did my years and I'm glad I did it. Don't you leave, at least not now. Promise me you'll stay here for at least a few years so I, in my old age, can leave. And I made him that promise. I knew even as I did, I shouldn't. There were various times where I brought people out, Tish Tesh, and who's the sister of John Tesh, and who's a figure in the US, and others who couldn't handle the level of malnutrition and starvation. And especially when we would lose children, we would try to get them to the hospital in time and get them built up, but just a bee sting and they would not make it. And it was just too much emotionally for her. And so there were those that said, I will support it, but I cannot continue. And the corruption continued. As much as I tried to feed the children and have them nourished, I couldn't stay there full time. I couldn't. I had projects all over the world. And at that point, SAVE was very active. The children weren't old enough. And those that I had rescued, the women, were not in a position yet of being able to safely run it. And so I could not stay out in Picard. I loved living with nomadic. I always have. But I love the silence. I love the time, the element of time. I love the bringing alive all my senses, but I could not stay there. It was not practical. And the amount of corruption within government, because it's so far removed, that just wasn't even an awareness of the educated in Kenya, a huge gap. And yet the educated felt they knew. And because I was a foreigner, I didn't. And that was exhausting. And I didn't want to, and had no right to preach to the educated of a country. And so I thought, all right, the same concept of IHF, of these folks becoming educated enough to communicate for themselves with the other educated, it needs to happen. It needs to be slow, quiet roots again. The same philosophy as IHF. And there, of course, are wonderful organizations that are able to do the large emergency. So slowly it became an IHF versus just the famine feeds and rescues. It had to formally become IHF all the time, I kind of fighting it, that I do not want to take on more. IHF was supposed to be my smallest project. It's getting too big. It became it at the point that the children kept not healing. Their skin was not thickening. And I became aware that the food is literally being stolen from them. And when I stayed there and in middle of the night had myself stay awake and watch things a bit and saw how horrifically the children were treated and literally beaten if they weren't keeping their precious children happy, whether it was the minister doing this, which was true of several ministers with their fancy TVs, and just feeling, where is Christianity here? Is it not being prostituted? What is going on? And yet knowing if I speak about that aloud, it will only create more problems for everyone. And thinking this is so complex and in depth, as poverty is everywhere, but uniquely here, in terms of literally stealing food from starving children. And Najaga James ate a goat, had it cooked, and had everyone sit in the audience. This is way out in Picot where they can get away with acting this way. It's kind of like the internet nowadays where people can be so mean and bully each other because they're anonymous. They're distant from each other, and they can bring out their meanest selves. It's kind of like that when you're working with nomadic tribes and tribes that are removed and at distances. People can act however. Um, and so he sat there eating the goat and roasting it. And these were people starving to death that were forced to sit there and watch him eat, and then they could eat the leftovers afterwards. And I knew it was dangerous for me and for the volunteers with me, my daughter, if I did anything. And I had to just sit there. And that made me determined. I have to do something. And I need to get these kids to a place where I can build up their skin, their internal organs to function again properly, color to come back to their hair, and their eyes to be able to see. But I need to get them better health wise. And fortunately, I had a sister and quite a few dear friends as doctors, and I just a sister-in-law and friends as doctors who I hoped at that point, didn't know, might come and also help. And that's how we ended up involved, and that's how I ended up having to buy the center. I made sure, because of the level of corruption going on everywhere, as all over the world, as to be expected with whenever you're working with very at risk and abused populations who don't have a voice, that attracts people who use them, along with the best angels in the world. It also attracts the best angels. And I bought the land, making sure that the folks in Nairobi and in Nakuru and all the officials, which is so important, you guys, were present, and it was videotaped, and they were choosing which land we were buying, and on video saying how it should be, in order to be legal, what needs to be done. And then when I bought the land and cashed out my retirement to do that, I made sure that President Moy, the president of the country, and I flew in the helicopters, and he announced to populations on video why I had paid him this cash and bought the land, and how we had researched. He would joke about how Carol made sure it was freestyle so that we would own it for always and always, and what its purpose was for Kenya far beyond my lifespan. And made sure of all that, because I knew people would be corrupt and try stealing and try doing everything. And it's what I've been dealing with today. It's more people trying to do more cons. It's never ending, especially as the land value has skyrocketed. And we moved to Nakuru then, and that's how it became in Kenya. That's how it started there. And the thinking behind it was not just that the UN couldn't support Pakat for good reasons at that time and place, um, but also that this was where the UN is, and the UN is so important to the world, and it's where headquartered were World Wildlife and all these organizations that are so important, for Africa. A dear friend who heads Mercy Corps. It just, I felt like we've kind of like I feel with felt with my own country. We have to have one place in the U.S. It has to be possible for women to climb through the classes without having to do it through the bed of a man, for the sake of men knowing they're truly loved. I felt the same way in terms of Africa as something so deep and gorgeous. And the women, country after country, so even though so diverse, have such a spiritual strength that I want women, the rest of the women of the world, to learn. And they've learned how to balance somehow and live in a world of corruption while nurturing and spiritual, and how they ride that and balance that with such strength. I've always been just enamored and have felt like someday These are the queens of the world that all of us as women need to learn from. So there was that in the back of my mind, even though I resisted, in terms of Kenya and the UN is here. So if corruption is here, kind of like in the US with women, if corruption is here where the UN is, we need to clean it up here. And I want those in the nomadic tribes and those in tribes that are not qualifying for anything and abused, those children that they purposefully keep in starvation mode. So they bring out for the visiting churches and say, look, here's starving children that we're giving our lives for. And that whole game, I wanted to be at that place as a small, quiet example. And my goal always with IHF is very different than it was with home. And that is to have a small, slow, pure example that over many years can prove itself, that there are enough good angels in the world and in Kenya and in every country that truly care and truly get their joy from doing this kind of work and understand what joy and happiness are because they experience it, and they will come together and help. So that's why Kenya, the long story.
Thank you so much, Ma. It's incredibly heartwarming to hear about the journey and how the establishment came about in Kenya. IHF has indeed come a long way, and I feel really privileged to be a part of this journey and to contribute in any way I can. So, if you notice, Ma, we have someone here that we didn't have previously. Her name is Ikemesit, and she's the assistant executive director, and she's here with us.
And she's my
Her-
darling. She's my wonder. Talk about women that are such examples. Yes. Yes.
She's here today, and she said she has a question for you. So I was like, okay, come join us. So she's here. Ikemesit, can you please introduce yourself and tell us your role within IHF?
Hi, Grandma.
Hi, darling.
Thank you so much, Darius, for this opportunity. My name is Ikemesit, and I am the Assistant Executive Director for the Human Resource Division in IHF. So, let's discuss more about the African region. Lately, we've seen a significant number of Nigerians participating in the online GLD program within your organization. So, please, I would love to know how you feel. What experience, like the experience you have collaborating with Nigerians, how do you feel? I would love to know how you feel working with Nigerians.
The word that comes before my brain that I see in the sky that I'm looking out at is brilliance, in-depth eagerness for learning and solutions and humanity, and such a negative response in the beginning of people saying, no. All this corruption, most of the internet corruption comes from Nigeria. No. Remember when Vicky Levy was conned $10,000 to get you out? That came from Nigeria, Ma. No. And I am just like, it's all the more important to me that other organizations and all over the world. I know my son ended up hiring, I believe it was Nigerian for a major position and coming over, realize that it's like what I was talking about with Kenya, the small that are corrupt don't override the other, and that there is this wealth, just the wealth of people. I just wrote it in a text yesterday, no, an email, where they tried to recruit me, which is so funny. I get that daily, recruiting things because I'm trying to retire, recruiting that for this and that. And I said, no, but I have brilliant new GLD that have just come on to IHF. They're just starting, but they're going to be phenomenal. And they're from Nigeria. I don't want that to put you off because they're absolutely phenomenal. The only concern I have is as I'm trying to retire and need to, which is why I love these podcasts so that we can do all the lessons and have, I don't need to continue. I don't need to be a mouth without a person behind the mouth. Um, that it can, IHF has been where people flow through. It's a school. So each year they're flowing through, and each year we have new people at different times. Though unusually, I think because of the pandemic, it started it, we have all of you all at once. And that's been a big bundle for me. um, and I'm just so enamored, just so, oh my gosh, what treasures. Um, the executives, I've never had executives without prior experience and knowing IHF who are so eager to learn and creative and organized, and that they can immediately step into positions and comprehend them, which is no easy feat. Um, it just astounds me. Now, my concern is they're having online experience in this experiment of doing this online, and it's phenomenal. There's so much that can be learned, but we're not doing any at center. And so I do think down the road, via you guys, not me, I mean that, down the road, there will need to be a center for at center experience also. But what this amazing group can do is work online with any NGOs for all of their administrative coordinating and online work. Along with their research, not just administrative. They'll be phenomenal at knowing how you organize both volunteers and staff, how you put together your project teams, how you have to keep your human resources, what you need to do legally. They'll be walking encyclopedias and phenomenally educated and be able to just plug in to any organization and know what to do. But I still would love it if they had at center experience. So my thinking is, do we try to get airlines as they used to, like Malaysia Air used to, United did for us, to do flights so they come to our centers? Or do we start a seed project? Some small seed, always best to start very small and slow, always best to understate and under start and then produce more and be surprised and delighted by that if that happens, and not be stressed if surprises come and you can't meet the goals. So if they start some small project after a year or so, that's the only part I'm worried about in terms of being able to offer a really well-rounded education. But as far as working online for corporations, businesses, or nonprofits, I think they're going to be phenomenal. Yay! And this
Yeah,
is
I
an
do
old
agree.
lady. This is an old lady who's dealt with literally thousands and thousands of volunteers for over 40 years. I've got gems. I've got such gems now.
Yes, I do agree that IHF member from Nigeria is really amazing, and I do also really happy to work and talk with them. That's because they are really truly amazing. So for the next question for Carol, on a lighter note, what is your favorite food to eat And have you tried maybe Indonesian or Kenyan food?
Honey, I've been in Indonesia and as my home base since 90 something and celebrated with my family, my son, daughter, I've celebrated the millennium there. So when it comes to Indonesian food, boy, do I miss it. Um, so my favorite food depends on where I'm at. My favorite fruit is mangosteens. I miss them so much. Lambutans in the Thai version, I love. Um, Mangosteens from Indonesia, I love, particularly Bali. Any kind of satay, jumbo juice. What we do in we have the best jumbo juice near the Jakarta Center. So when we're done with classes and the moon is out and it's late at night and we're all tired, the teachers and the kids and I will skip and dance and everyone's ready for us at night. They know we're going to do it. So as a group, we skip and we go, we're going to go for some jumbo juice. Hey, we're going to go for jumbo juice. And I miss that so much. I don't miss, no, that's not true. I started to say I don't miss ugali in Kenya. But you know what's weird is I never thought I would say this. I even miss ugali. I think the food is full of the memories and the children's laughter and the life. So I my favorite food depends on which country you're putting me in. Oh, I love sticky rice with mango in Thailand. The best. Aceh has the best coffee in the world. That type of coffee that you do in the stock, but nowhere is it as good as the stand that's next to our center in Medin. Nowhere. I've never had coffee as good. So my favorite food depends on where I am. That's all. I'm not a fan of US food. I'm sorry. It's kind of bland. But my favorite food depends on where I am and what memories are attached to it.
Um, I was really laughing. I thank God I didn't unmute. But I'm going to have to make sure that you test Nigerian food, which is jollof rice.
I
Um,
you uh, I'm gonna have to do how are we gonna do that, sweetie?
I just
How
have
are
to
we
think.
oh
I it's really tasty. I know I sent it. Oh yeah, and she was like, "Wow, it looks so
I will
good." So
oh I get so attached to food because of the memories with it that you just crave it in the middle of nowhere. You can sit in your early morning quiet silent time and suddenly it's like I want
no, food is
Yeah.
important. Food is very, very important.
It is.
Thank you so much, Ma, for all your words of wisdom and great insights. I learn from you every day. And this is the last question for you. As a woman that I am, and some of us here are, and you as well, what advice, like maybe two or one really good advice that I can't find anywhere, do you have for young women like me who are trying to make a name for themselves, especially in the field of humanitarian work? What words of wisdom would you offer?
Wow. Honey, that is r- really important question and deep question. Boy, oh boy, I could go on and on. Um, don't let anyone else define you. And any assets you have, don't feel like you need to hide them because you're a woman. If I don't care if it's physical beauty, lack of physical beauty, if it's intelligence, if it's your humor, if it's your shyness, if it's your Embrace who you are, because as a woman, it's especially important. And that's your strength. And if you try to make yourself something else, which you can be anything, but if you try to make yourself something else and hide parts of yourself, you lose that river inside of yourself and your strength, especially if you do it for other men. Nothing is wrong with anything you do in terms of your relationship with men or women. Nothing. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong if it helps you to survive and have strength. But the only thing that is wrong is if you lose yourself in doing that. If you don't lose yourself in doing that, and you hold to who you really are, and you have that very honest place inside of you, you don't forfeit that for anyone, then you'll have that quiet strength. So in terms of people defining what is right for you as a woman, you should be like this or you should be like that, and this is wrong with you and that is wrong with you, be Teflon. Do you know what Teflon is? Don't let it stick. Don't let it stick. Please don't let it stick, because that's what puts women down. And for men, they've been taught that how you can show off your women and use them and how you act with them is what will make you seem big to the men, and that's what matters. Holy moly, what? Don't get caught in that world. Don't get caught in being that thing. You can use it to your advantage, but don't let it define you. Don't let other people define you as a woman, because your strength is that part of you that loves and nurtures, and you've got to have that for yourself. You want that for your children if you have children. You don't have to have children. Nothing should define you. Nothing other than who you uniquely are and God made you to be. That's what you are, or science or whatever you believe in. That's what you are and are meant to be. Nobody else can be that. So for God's sakes, treasure who you uniquely are. And if someone makes you feel stupid for it, then that's their problem. Literally, that's their problem. Think about it. That's their lack of intelligence and sophistication. Who in their right mind, especially if it's another female, would want to make a female feel stupid or less? Who, if they're at all mentally healthy or intelligent in any way, who would want to do that to another female? There's something wrong with them if they want to do that, not with you. So as a female, you have beauty that you don't have to scream out. You have beauty that you don't have to flash. It's there in you, who you are exactly as you honestly are. Don't lie. Just be who you are. And then what you have to do outside of that, I really don't care. Do what you have to do, as long as inside you have that. Also know there are practical skills. Those people that seem so intelligent, remember, I failed all kinds of tests and was considered really stupid. And then I did twice as many credits as anyone in the history of my university, which is a very old university, and got straight A's. How did that same brain that was getting D's and couldn't pass and was considered illiterate, how did that same brain then do otherwise? I didn't get a brain transfer. I learned techniques. So don't judge yourself by smart, not smart, pretty, not pretty. Think of it as a game, and inside is what matters. There are so many actual practical things I'd love to go into also, in terms of for women, and we'll do that another time. But the thing that is most important to me for each of you as a woman is to hold on, treasure, and love your uniqueness and not have to prove it to anyone. Then you will have the energy and be relaxed enough and not be afraid of disapproval enough to be able to fail enough to get good at things. Then when people are arguing, you'll have no problem saying, well, sorry, that's probably my fault, because you won't care if it is, because you know you're gorgeous. What does it matter whose fault it is? You just want to find a solution. It doesn't matter. So you have no problem, because you won't have to hold on to what people think of you, where you lose so much strength in that. Does that make sense, darling?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mom. It just came out
Yeah.
already. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ma, before we wrap up today's podcast, if you remember, I told you this morning, was it yesterday, that we have a surprise for you. I know that.
You have a surprise? You guys are my surprise. What's the surprise? There's this old woman, speaking of women. What?
We know that there is nothing that we can really do that can amount to everything you're doing for humanity and us, but this is just a little way in saying thank you. So what we did, Enekeme, Sylvia and I, we spoke to all the leads, your leads at IHF. So they've taken some time to write their appreciation letter, appreciation heartfelt messages for you. So they want me to read them to you while you just sit and listen and just bask in it. So here they go. I think it's important for you to hear their words. So I'm just going to read them. So this is from Okay Ifeanyi, who is the team lead, MOU team co-lead reference, and he says, I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude to Carol for her exceptional leadership. Her dedication and guidance have truly made a difference in our team's success. Also, I'd love to give a big shout out to her because she's so amazing and her ability to mold others into great leaders is commendable. I feel grateful to be under her leadership. #Team Carol. And this is from Andrea, grants and fundraising team member of former lead for interview team, and she says, I would like to say thank you to Carol for giving me the opportunity to learn with IHF. It truly is such an interesting thing to be part of an international organization that works remotely with volunteers all over the world. The system she has built is strong and makes such a difference for people. This is from Ikemesis, but she's here, so she's going to have to read that herself. This is from Amil, and he says, I've been working with Carol since 2018. She is amazing, and I'm grateful for the experience of having her as a leader in my life, both at work and personally. I think she's incredible, and I try to tell her that as much as I can, although sometimes it feels like it's not enough. What I really like about her is that she connects well with people and understands things from each other's perspective. At the same time, she keeps the company's goals in mind. She's good at aligning individual need with what the company wants to achieve. She does this without making people feel manipulated. Instead, she brings out the best in them and the company. I also appreciate that she ensures people experience things that they may not like because it is important for growth. Sometimes facing challenges becomes a strength. Thanks to her leadership and her overall, I feel blessed and thankful to have worked with her. And this is from Utibe. And she says, I just wanted to thank Carol for all she is doing for the kids. It is difficult to stand up for individuals you don't know, pick them up, clean up your life, and just assist them become better and more responsible members of society. It is a much appreciated sacrifice. This is me giving her a shout out and asking that God would bless her for what she has done and continues to accomplish. She has been a great leader, correcting with love, I just love the way she cracks us up. She is such a jolly soul. This is from Mary Blessing, and she says, Madam Carol, your visionary leadership and compassionate guidance have been a beacon of inspiration for us all. Thank you for your tireless dedication and support. Madam Carol's leadership is characterized by integrity, empathy, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. She embodies the true essence of a transformative leader, empowering others to reach their full potential. And this is from Lucy, and she says, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to Madam Carol for her support and leadership here at IHF. As a volunteer, I have been truly inspired by the vision and commitment you bring to our organization. Your guidance has not only shaped the direction of IHF, but it also has had a significant impact on my personal growth and development. Your dedication to excellence and your ability to lead by example serves as a constant source of motivation for me. Every day presents its own set of challenges and decisions to be made. Effective communication is key to the success of any organization, and this has helped Madam Carol bring out the best in us and corrected us in the gentlest and sweetest manner. And this is from Lucy, and she says, I am Lucy McNiggy, currently taking the allocation team. I am grateful for the opportunity to be part of such a dynamic team and to contribute to the meaningful work we do under your leadership. Thank you for creating an environment where volunteers like myself can thrive and make a difference. Thank you so much, Madam Carol, IHF CEO. And this is from John O, and he says he's the GLD Director, Kenya Center, Social Media Team, Podcast and Fundraising, and he says, thank you, Carol, for your dedication and inspiring leadership. Your passion for the Pass It On program shines through in every episode, touching countless lives along the way. Your leadership position is not just about guiding the company forward, but also about empowering each team member to reach their full potential. Your guidance and vision have truly made a difference. This is from Musfira Tayyip, reference leading. He or she says, Hi, I want to take up this chance to express my gratitude to you for developing IHF as a community based on shared leadership, where we all learn to take initiative and shoulder responsibilities to groom ourselves into better individuals and leaders. I have learned and absorbed so much of your communication skills, how as CEO you choose words with such conscious awareness of their effectiveness. It's marvelous. I love how approachable you are to every single member of IHF and acknowledge even the smallest contributions of the members. Thanks for making us feel like valuable assets, even at times when we do not feel like it ourselves. This is from Brenda, HR executive, and she says, Carol, I have learned and been inspired by your leadership since I joined IHF. Your consistency and accuracy in all is unmatched. I have become a different leader in my personal and professional spaces through what I've learned from you. I am no longer hesitant to present myself globally because of the exposure you at IHF have given to me. I will forever be grateful for all. Carol is such a good mentor and coach and visionary leader with strong resilience. I'm super grateful. Since we have Sylvia Ikemesid and I here, I'm going to invite them to share their appreciation messages to you as well, Ma. So Sylvia, please go ahead.
Of course, thank you so much, Doris. I really want to say a huge thank you to Carol, because she has not only helped me learn so much, but her belief in us and her passion for helping children in need truly inspired me a lot. And I learned a lot of things from her. And also, thank you for your words of wisdom before, because it really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvia. Enekeme.
Thank you very much, Darius. Ma, your guidance has been a beacon in my leadership journey. When I applied to join IHF last year, I had no skill nor experience to speak of, but in less than a year, with your unwavering belief in me, have transformed into who I am today. Your support, even when scolding me for mistakes, has been nothing short of remarkable. You have been my shield, touching humanity with your words. You have made me fall deeply in love with this incredible organization. Your vision has brought my future closer than I ever imagined. Turning my dreams into reality within a year, Ma, you have built my skills and confidence from the ground up, loving us like a mother and guiding us like a grandmother. Thank you for everything you do for humanity, especially for the children, for we, and for everyone. I am forever grateful for this opportunity you have given to me and to everyone, for your immense support. Thank you very much, Ma. And thank you, IHF, for giving us the platform to display our little skill.
Okay, Ikeme-set.
Ma, I want to express my heartfelt appreciation for everything I have learned since I joined the International Humanity Foundation, IHF. Working under your leadership has been an incredibly enriching experience that has deeply impacted my life. Your example has taught me the importance of treating others with unwavering kindness, empathy, and patience. I have grown so much, not just professionally, but also personally. You lead with compassion and integrity and inspire me to bring the same qualities to my business and to interacting with people. I feel truly fortunate to be part of an organization dedicated to such a worthy humanitarian mission. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and for your guidance and support. I am deeply grateful for the positive impact you have had on my life, and I really appreciate. I pray that the good Lord bless you for everything you do for me and for the organization. Thank you so much, Ma.
Okay, Ma. Lastly, if you'd allow me, I'd like to share my appreciation message to you as well. Ma, when I reflect on my journey with IHF, I'm filled with gratitude for the support and guidance you've provided. When I first joined IHF, I was eager to hone my skill, but I needed to figure out how to navigate the path ahead. You've provided the perfect avenue for me to showcase my talents and grow professionally. Despite the many demands on your time, your dedication to each member of IHF is commendable. You've always made yourself available to offer advice, support, and encouragement, and for that, I am truly grateful. But what sets you apart as a leader is your ability to lead with empathy and compassion. You see the potential in each of us and empower us to reach our fullest potential. Your patience and understanding, even in times of imperfection, has been a source of inspiration for me. So thank you so much for believing in us, for guiding us every step of the way, and for being a light within the I family. Your leadership has made a profound impact on me, and I feel so honored to be under your mentorship. May God bless you abundantly for all that you do. I really do hope that you find these messages as uplifting as we find your leadership. So, from all of us, or some of us, at IHF, we say thank you so much, Ma. We're really grateful to you.
My precious love. I'm speechless, darlings. I'm your blabbermouth is speechless. Oh my gosh, my darlings. I'm sorry, I can't talk. The tears are just flowing. My sweet loves. Thank you all so much. I'm so blessed.
Thank you, Ma.
Old lady crying. I'm sorry, darlings. I'm just so. Thank you, sweet loves.
You're welcome, Ma. Thank you as well. And with that, we come to the end of today's episode. More like we've come to the end of these parts, because it's 3 parts. We really had to make it in parts because it's our CEO, so we have to give her the respect. Ma, we are truly grateful for your time. I can't imagine how you've taken time out of your busy schedule to be with us, to share your insight with us. So thank you so
Honey,
much.
I'm so grateful for your time. Each of you, your time is just, thank you, each of you so much, my darlings. You know, it compliments and insults. They come and go. People angry at us and upset when we think we're doing right, like right now, the legal stuff in Kenya, and that stuff comes and goes, but the souls, each of you, that's the joy that never fades. Never, my darlings. Thank you.
No problem, Ma. Ma, you can say goodbye to our listeners as well as I round up and invite my co-host as well. So let me start with you. Say bye-bye and something to our listeners.
Bye-bye. Oh, that's right. I forget that it's listeners. That's so funny. I forgot it's a podcast.
It's okay.
I'm just thinking of each of you and your futures and your light. All right. So podcast, I say bye-bye to each person who's listening out there. And I hope whatever is bombarding you and making your days difficult, which is life, I hope you have wonderful moments to pause and feel the perfectness in each moment and the light in your soul that everyone here today has talked about so beautifully. Bye-bye to those listening, and bye-bye to my dear loves who have just talked to me.
No problem, but thank you to do this again sometime. My 2 sweetest co-hosts, thank you so much for joining me. It's been so amazing to have both of you here. For just, I don't know, you both know how we do it, but you know, it's just between us. But thank you so much. So, but before we conclude, I'd also like you to say something to our listeners and whatever. I'll start with you, Sylvia, as always.
Thank you so much. I really want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. And as your co-host, I really enjoy it. And thank you. Bye. Don't forget to listen to our podcast.
Okay. And Ekeme.
Okay, thank you, Darius. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this magnificent episode 3. Thank you, Sylvia, for being here, and thank you, Carol, for also finding time to be here with us. For the listeners, you can as well go on to all our social media platforms as well as our YouTube and Spotify podcast accounts to listen to our previous and our next episode. Thank you for always finding time to be with us. IHF is a family, and we are very thrilled to be touching humanity with our podcast channel.
Thank you. And Ekeme sits. Let's say something.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Darius. To the listeners, thank you. And to our grandma, Carol, thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate.
Okay. Thank you so much, our listeners. It's all about you. Thank you for tuning in. Your support means the world to us. And that concludes our 3rd episode of Pass It On. Get ready for even more heartwarming chats and tales of kindness next time. Just like my co-hosts have said, stay connected through our Spotify discussion menu. Drop some love in the YouTube comments and keep the buzz alive on all our social media platforms. We'll be back next time for our next episode. So until then, let's keep the positivity flowing. I'm your guest, Fabulous Diaries, and it's been a pleasure. See you next time and take care.